President Biden and former President Donald Trump are both along the U.S. Mexico border right now. Ed O'Keefe is in Brownsville, Texas. That's the city where President Biden is visiting, while Mr. Trump is a couple hundred miles away in Eagle Pass, Texas. Ed, we just saw the president and the Homeland Security Secretary speaking with border agents. I know you're close to where they are. What can you tell us about that piece of what we're witnessing, this kind of split-screen moment today?
Yeah, good afternoon, Errol. We are at the Brownsville station of the Customs and Border Protection. The president is en route to this facility for a briefing from local officials, and then we'll address the assembled here collection of statewide and local elected officials, CBP agents, and others from the community. He was at the border a little while ago, meeting with some CBP agents, seeing their equipment, getting a sense of things there down on the Rio Grande, while about 325 miles away, roughly the distance between Boston and Philadelphia or Los Angeles and San Jose, to give you a sense of the vastness of the U.S. Mexico border across this Lone Star State. Former President Trump is meeting with Governor Greg Abbott, arguably these days the biggest Republican opponent of the president's immigration policy, at least active Republican or Republican in office, whose state has been fighting the federal government over who exactly should be handling apprehensions of those illegally crossing the border. Trump is in Eagle Pass visiting what's called Shelby Park, this park that's become sort of the flashpoint between the state and federal agencies down there that argue and fight in court over who exactly has control of the border. And they will be spending a good chunk of the afternoon together.
We ask that you please take your seats. The program will begin
awaiting a
momentarily.
program to begin here in just a few minutes. Again, first, the president is set to get an operational briefing from local CBP officials alongside his Homeland Security Secretary, who, of course, also is a big Republican target these days, having recently been impeached by the Republican-led House of Representatives for his oversight of immigration policy, awaiting a trial date, if you will, in the Senate. Whether or not they actually take up his impeachment charges remains to be seen, Errol.
All right, that announcement, Ed, suggests we need to let you go momentarily. So let me see if I can squeeze in this question, and you can, jump and sit down when you have to.
We got time. Go ahead.
We've got this fresh CBS News polling, or at least a polling from January, which shows the stark divide between Republicans and Democrats on how they view the issue of border security. And if we kind of extrapolate some of these numbers, we know that immigration and the border seeming to be the second most important factor or problem facing the country after inflation. But when you look into what Democrats and Republicans said, some 64% of Democrats said, well, look, most people crossing the border are looking for jobs. But on the Republican side, some 46% said most are crossing the border looking for handouts. How does that color how each side is trying to solve what appears to be a high issue of national importance?
It's why we have an impasse in the Democratic-controlled Senate and the Republican-controlled House right now over not only how to handle this issue, despite the bipartisan deal that was struck in the Senate between Democrats and Republicans, but also how to make sure that the federal government remains open after this weekend. It looks like they're headed towards that. And whether aid to Ukraine and Israel ever gets handed out by the United States, because Republicans in the House especially have said, we're not dealing with those issues, and we will hold operations of the federal government up until or unless we get some kind of an agreement that more forcefully handles the situation along the U.S. Mexico border and makes changes in immigration policy to dissuade people from making the journey to that span. As you lay out there, the two sides have very different views of what exactly are the intentions of those making the crossings, a record 2.4 million of them in the last fiscal year. But also notable, and I think this is important today, especially when you're going to hear and see a lot of finger pointing across the aisles, the president and congressional Republicans in our most recent CBS survey get held to account about equally, 62, 63% for each of them, which in essence says the public is fed up generally with how federal Washington's trying to deal with this situation, even if the two sides are coming at it in different ways. So it's a signal by having the two leaders here today that they understand this is becoming a bigger concern, an urgent security priority in many communities across the country, not just along the border, an economic concern for businesses who struggle to find employees or keep employees, and then just a general sense of disorder that many voters feel when they continue to hear stories about, for example, that college student who was murdered in Texas, or the record number of crossings that happen not only here in Texas, but in Arizona increasingly, and California as well.
And ironically, Ed, just because it seems as though we have a few more seconds with you, and I know we were discussing this in our editorial call here at CBS News this morning, each of the gentlemen presenting potential solutions today both have fingerprints on the problem. Mr. Biden being the current occupant of the White House and Mr. Trump being the former. So to some extent, don't they also shoulder some of the blame?
Absolutely, Errol. Former President Trump failed to address the crisis to a point where it might have stopped it. President Biden currently struggling to address the crisis. And when he was in office, remember, former President Trump was saying, I need Congress to work with me to get this done, which is exactly what the current president is saying, while the former president now says, no, he can use executive authority to get it done on his own. So shoes on the other foot, arguments being made in similar but different ways. All of it a stark example of how this has become a top voter concern, with the economy perhaps the only other one. But here, a chance today for the two of them to take a look at the problem in real time.
All right, Ed O'Keefe there in Brownsville, Texas, moments away from hearing remarks from President Biden. As soon as that begins, we'll bring it to our viewers live. Ed, thank you very much. And of course, as soon as former President Trump delivers remarks, we expect at some time in Eagle Pass, Texas, we'll bring that to you as well. Stay with us here on CBS News. We'll be right back.